What's going on? What's going on? Give us a sec. We're still getting our guests situated. We are going to get going in just a few minutes, but wanted to hop on because I hate starting late. But let me hop on here. Let me make sure we're getting situated on all the platforms. We are live on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter, and we are about to be live on Instagram in just a second. Maybe not. Maybe Instagram isn't working today. But while we're waiting for Jabari, if we have some people that want to share any of their wins from the past week, you know that we like to get this session started with some wins. Feel free to share some wins in the comments if you have any. Oh, I'm assuming you have wins from the past week, but share your wins. Put them here. Okay, we got Jabari. He's here.
Hey.
There he is, fashionably late.
Yeah, sorry about that. I thought I was just gonna turn on a camera and it was not that easy. So can you hear me all good?
Yeah, everything is straight. Everything is good. How you been?
All right. I'm good, man. I want to make sure that this mic, like I don't be using this mic often, so I want to make sure this mic is okay too.
No, everything sounds good. Sounds good. Looks good. Where are you at? Where are you at now?
I'm in the office, man. HQ Colors Worldwide, out in Los Angeles, man. So just here, getting the Monday started right, man.
Didn't you tell me you were moving to Atlanta before?
I have been potentially thinking about moving to a lot of different places. So at one point, yeah, I was going to take the business down there. Another point, I was probably going to move the business somewhere in Texas. So yeah,
Okay.
man. But no, we're pretty stuck here and staying in LA for quite some time.
All good, all good. Before we get started, man, I like to start these sessions off with just sharing a win from the past week. So for you, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You don't have to lock in some $1 million deal or anything like that. Whatever you consider a win that has gotten you through the week and that you can build on for the upcoming week. Share some wins from the past week from your world.
Wins from the past week. Let's see. Let me see. I have to literally look at the calendar and see what happened last week.
It doesn't even have to be business related, to be honest. Like maybe you got, your workout for 4 days out of the past 7, or
okay. I would say this. It kind of is like a work and life thing. So a win was we had a festival. We had an R&B only fest down in Dallas, Texas. It was a great show. We brought out a few surprise guests. We had Lloyd, Tidra Moses, and John B all perform with us. It was I brought my lady and my daughter down there. So, but then me and my daughter both got sick right after the show. So we were both in the urgent care in Dallas, and urgent care took care of us. But we were just trying to make it back home. Because we were there I had to stay out there for a few meetings and stuff like that after. But ultimately what ended up happening was she got better, and got back in the crib and was just her normal self when she returned home. And then I'm much better now. But yeah, so I feel a lot better. And I think the win is just getting our health back. You know what I'm saying? That was probably the big win of the past few days for me. But that's why I'm drinking tea right now still. Yeah.
All good. Nah, I mean, we've talked a few times over the past few months, and I'm always keeping up with what you're doing. You're one of the people that I've been super impressed by, just to see the growth over the years. So definitely want to.
Thank you, man.
Looking forward.
You as well, bro.
Man, we all have ups and downs, but I mean, you've seen me go through it. You've seen highs and lows.
Yep.
But let me introduce you. Today we have my guy Jabari Johnson. He's the CEO and founder of Colors Worldwide. If you're not familiar with that brand, I know you're familiar with the R&B only brand. I don't know if you like the way that I call it, like a live event. It's a legendary live event brand at this point. Everybody knows about it in the R&B space, but we want to work backwards because it wasn't always this great. I remember, I think are you from Seattle, or are you just doing work in Seattle?
No, I'm from between, like, man, I grew up in New York and then I moved to Columbus, Ohio, moved back to New York, and then so basically between both of those two areas, man, like all over New York and Columbus, Ohio, man, is where I grew up. But I was doing a lot of work in Seattle.
That's what it
Um,
was. Okay.
and yeah, just working a lot with Macklemore and Ryan Lewis, those guys. I was always up in Seattle. I was always doing stuff in Seattle, and yeah, just so
So
I got strong roots in like various cities, but but where I'm from is between New York and Columbus.
So when did you start working in music? When was like the passion when you started decided like, look, I got to figure out how to, carve out my space in music.
Yeah, I started in music, bro. Um, I always say, man, I kind of been working in this since I was a kid, man. It's been like for the better plus of 20 years. So my start was in high school. I was managing a rap group that I went to high school with. Um, and at that time, I was literally just like watching Rockefeller and looking at Dame and trying to get my hands on any time because this is like the internet was around, but this is like this is still like Double XL magazine, Source magazine, like the radio. That was where I was getting my like information. And I always had this like duality of like I was going to school in Columbus, Ohio, but I was spending summers in New York with my dad and with my family at my grandmother's house in Harlem. And so I was always just like literally every chance I got when I was in New York, I was listening to Hot 97, like from the day I stepped in New York in the summer all the way till like when I had to go back to school in August. And so what I was doing when I was managing the group was I was trying to emulate what I was seeing from afar, what Dame Dash was doing with like Jay and just like all the artists that were on the rock. And so, for me, it was like just trying to get our music to as many people as possible. I was trying to get our stuff on the radio stations. I was having us perform at like local talent shows, and this is at like 15. You know what I'm saying? So like I'm
Okay.
37 now. So that was literally my introduction. Then when I turned 16, um, I like there was a store in Columbus that we used to hang out at, get our clothes from. It was literally the store was called like Hip Hop Fashions, and we used to like get like all of our gear from there. And the manager of the store ended up becoming a big homie of mine because again, back to I used to burn our CDs and take them all around the city. Like I don't care if it was like the hood, the suburbs, like all the high schools. I would be giving CDs to everybody who I thought was like listening to music, and so we would press up all these CDs and distribute them out. And then I was like, this clothing store we used to always go to get clothes from. I said, hey, can I just leave a bunch of CDs here? And can you guys play it sometimes? Like, just check it out. You know what I mean? And so the manager of the store took a liking to me. And he was like, just, come by the store. So I would always go by the store on the weekends after school. That's like when I wasn't working. And that would be my other hustle. And I would learn a lot about like how the store worked, how they got a Nike account. And I was just learning. It was crazy, man, because it was really like I was in like a getting like a college level like business degree, but I was just learning from like a manager of a store who just like took a liking to me, and that's still my good friend to this day. Shout out to Big Mark. And so he then was like, you know what, you got a lot of drive, you got a lot of like hustle in you. I want you to meet this DJ. And so he introduced me to a DJ who was in college at Ohio State at the time, and that DJ's name was Steph Floss. And Steph Floss is like LeBron's DJ. He DJs for the Cavaliers now. Like I don't know if he still DJs for the Cavs, but he DJs for like the Browns, like a lot of the professional teams in
Yeah.
Cleveland. But he was just in school. He was going to college in at Ohio State, and he was like one of the hottest DJs in college. So he was like, "Yo, this guy, he's popping off. You should hang out with him." And like, so both of them kind of became mentors to me. But Steph Floss, when he was DJing in the clubs in Columbus, he was like, "Yo, this is back in like crates days. You know what I mean? Where you had to like put records
Yeah.
in crates. He used to drive like a Ford Explorer or something like that. And he was like, I need help when I'm going to the clubs. So if your mom is okay with it, like you can help me pack up the crates. And that'll be your way to like, basically he was like, you sneak in the club with me. But if you're packing the crates up, nobody's gonna say anything. You know what I mean? And so, mind you, I'm managing this group. I'm with one of the hottest DJs in the city, and I'm I'm literally like bringing in crates into all these clubs that I'm not supposed to be in. I'm 16 years old, and
Mhm.
that was that. So that's why, like, when people ask me like, how did I get started, man? Like, that's the true story, and it's like I've been in the industry for 20 plus years. I'm still a young person in the industry, though. You know what I mean? Like I've
Yeah.
had some accomplishments and done a few things, but as it relates to like my peers, I feel like a lot of people didn't get that like such an early start, and I feel like that kind of gave me an unfair advantage, especially because I wasn't in like a poppin' city, or I wasn't doing
Yeah.
this in Atlanta or New York or or LA. You know what I mean? I was just like getting it where I was from and where I was growing up at
Yeah.
the time, and all those early like man, and so I have like a lot of early memories of like I would be in the club with Joel Santana when he came through, or with Mike Jones. Like, and these are people who, like, when I was in high school, 16 years old, like Mike Jones was the hottest thing smoking. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
when he went on his press run and when he came through the city, like I would have like a grainy photo from the club with me and Mike Jones. You know what I mean? Like, and I would bring that back to school, bro. Like you couldn't tell me nothing. Like people, like in high school, people really were like no, Jabari's really like on. He's really doing. You know what I mean? Because like we watching these people on BT in high
Yeah.
school, and then like I would I
Yeah.
would I would come back like, yo, I was just in the club with Mike Jones last night, and some people wouldn't even believe me, but it was really happening. Shout out to my boy Steph Floss and Big Mark.
Yeah, you call that an unfair advantage. I think that's a very fair advantage because you put in the work, you were connecting the dots. I'm curious
Yeah,
to know though, because you don't manage artists anymore.
heck
Um,
no, I stopped doing that a long time ago.
no, but I'm curious to know, like, just what you know about the industry now and all the experience that you've had working with artists. Like, how would you change your mindset or your approach if you were to manage an artist today versus how you were moving back then? Is there anything that just kind of comes to
Mm,
mind, like, oh, I was doing that way wrong, I would do it like this?
yeah. Okay. So, few things that I understand now that I didn't understand then. Um, One, I would, if I was managing an artist today, I would think about, and again, like back then, it was like we weren't doing this. We didn't even like. I'm gonna say I would try to build businesses around artists, right? I would really focus on um, what I would look at the whole picture, like whatever it is you're doing, like what is the exit strategy? Because you can't be making music forever and trying to compete with the trends of what's hot and staying relevant and all of that. Like it's gonna ebb and flow. Even your creative inspiration is going to ebb and flow, and it's going to have ups and downs. And I would say though that like when you can create a business outside of the art, like that is that's how you can have like a real lasting impact. And sometimes that's taking a look at what an artist is interested in, and what finding out things that they can offer to their core audience, and take a look at maybe the unfair advantage of starting a business as an artist is like you have a bunch of people that like you and follow you. You know what I mean? And so like it's just like I would just say like having more holistic vision
Yeah.
and thinking, because I think so many of artists want to get into it for like I got something to say and I got a story to tell. Um, but in 5 years that might change. You know what I mean? In 2 years that might change. And not only might your story and what you want to share with the world change, but like the world's willingness to want to hear you say that story very well could change.
Yeah.
And so you got to know like what are you doing? What are you doing after that? And I think that like whether it's like getting them involved in like investments and other business opportunities or just building businesses. Um, I think that that's what like I think that's what a lot of successful managers, really successful managers, help an artist understand.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can have like, maybe there's money that you make even outside of your music world, but there's so many things that you can do like with your brand as an extension to your brand, like with telling your story. Like you might be an artist that, part of your story is like, you've lost a ton of weight and you became a vegan, and
Yeah,
that's part of the story that you tell through your music, but that's a whole other world of opportunities that you can plant yourself in and leverage the people that like you, and
yep,
like you said, have an unfair, again, I don't like the word unfair, because I think it's a very fair advantage of like,
yeah,
building a business in that arena. It kind of stands alone because it can be a successful, whether it's cooking books or whatever you decide to do in that space. But no, I think that's super smart. So how do we get, I mean, I don't want to jump right to R&B only, because that's not what happened, but we got to kind of go
yeah,
through this story. You started doing interviews and like documentaries at some point. Where did that start
yeah,
from?
yeah, for sure, man. Everything with me was a very, very natural progression, man. So like, um, I started off interviewing. I mean, sorry, I started off managing the artists in school, right? And I was trying to emulate what I was seeing from like my favorite record label, my favorite artist, Jay-Z. Just I was like, okay, man, we got to do something like that. Then I get accepted into Howard University, and I go to Howard, and I'm still actually, me and one of the artists that I was managing, they were in a group, and they sort of split up as a group when we graduated. But me and one of them went to Howard together because we were still trying to pursue the music thing with his career. And I was like, okay, Diddy went to Howard, like my mom went to Howard. So I grew up like going to Howard and seeing like homecomings and seeing like, and I just researched all the people that were in entertainment that went to Howard. But specifically, I was like, Diddy went here. Yeah, I know he didn't graduate. So, but whatever. Like, if he went here and he's running Bad Boy, like I gotta go here. And so, like that's really what I was thinking about. I was just like, look at the alumni that have been here, and if I go here and I got what I think is the dopest artist that's since slice, and that's how you have to have that kind of conviction when you're a manager, right? Like you almost have to believe it more than they believe it. But I truly believe that this kid was like the next the next like top lyricist that was about to like hit the game. And so when I went to Howard, my major was journalism. It was actually advertising, but it was in the journalism department. And so as just requirements for my classes, I had to interview a lot of people. So I would interview people who like worked at Howard Hospital. I would interview professors. I would interview like just people who were employed at school, or by the school. And what ended up happening was like I was just connected the two. I was like, well, I really love music. I really, I'm starting to find out through school that I like interviewing people. Why don't I blend the two? And if I interview people, and also I go to a school where like literally it's a press stop on like a bunch of artist runs. You know what I mean? Like so many artists are coming through the school and just coming through the city. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, well, if I can build up my interview chops, I can interview these artists when they come to school, and then I can like slide our demo tape to them. You know what I mean? Like, so that's really what I wasn't really thinking about it. It was like, oh, I want to do this because I'm like super passionate about it. I did have a but I saw the opportunity in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And seeing the opportunity is oftentimes I think like half the battle. And so I started interviewing folks, and I started working with a website at the time that was a popular website, and I know you know this site. It was called the smokingsection.net. Shout out to John Gotti. And yeah, and he's doing some work with ESPN right now, I believe. I just saw that.
So,
But yeah, I was interviewing people for him on that website, and then that evolved to me and I was doing phone interviews. So at first I remember my first interview ever was with a music video director named Jawan Lee. Then I interviewed Fabulous shortly after that. And then I interviewed Lloyd, which is so crazy because like Lloyd just performed at my last show.
That's
And
dope.
I just was like, and I just was interviewing a bunch of people. And I was like, man, this phone interview stuff is for the birds. Cause I was like, nobody's gonna remember who's interviewing them on the phone. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then let alone like it gets transcribed and then I have to like go and write everything and then put it in. And it's like a little small byline. And I was just like,
Mhm.
man, I can't do this. So I gotta turn the camera on and like I gotta interview people with video. So then I started doing the same thing for Smoking Section, but there was another big hip hop website at the time called hiphopgame.com. And so I had kind of built up my catalog with Smoking Section. And I was like, I took it to Hip Hop Game and I was like, hey, I wanted the interviews to reach more people and the site was a little bit bigger. And so I was like, let me do interviews for you guys. A bunch of artists come to my school. This is what I've already done. And if I'm able to tell, and again, it's like thinking about the opportunity. I was like, if I'm able to tell an artist, a manager, a PR rep that the interview is definitely gonna go on hiphopgame.com, it's not just an interview with me. Like it had like this built-in distribution because at this time this is the blog era, and a lot of like these blogs were like popping. And so they were like, okay, sure, cool. Yeah, we'll do it when like Willie North Pole stops over at, Howard University, or when Ace Hood pops up at Howard University. You could talk to him, sure. And then I just built a catalog like that. And a few of those interviews though, like I was interviewing any and everybody who came to school. I was doing like 2 to 3 interviews a week. And what I would do is I would go to the library, and I had all my Facebook friends, and I literally like print out a list of all my Facebook friends. I probably had like 2,000 friends on Facebook, and you could only send like 25 people one message at a time. So every time I would get a new interview, I'd get the link, and I'd have like a stack of pages, and I would manually type in everybody on Facebook, and then I would like turn the page, boom, 25, or even maybe 25 or 50. Okay, boom, here's the link. I just dropped this interview. Here's the link. And after doing that for like 2 years, I got like a little buzz on campus, and people knew me as the guy that interviews people. And then that one day, one of those interviews happened to be an interview that I did with Nicki Minaj, and I interviewed Nicki Minaj and 50 Cent on the same day. I drove up to I took a bus, matter of fact, took a mega bus up from DC to New York, and I did 50 earlier, and then I did Nicki, and me and Nicki were friends on MySpace. And she was just seeing like that I was the one who was doing all these interviews on hiphopgame.com, and she would send me music to put on the site, and she would email me music all the time, and I just always would get it on the site. And then one day I would just ask her, and this is all on MySpace, mind you. And so I asked her like, hey, if I come to New York, like, can we do an interview? And she was like, yeah, pull up at this. I was like, I'm coming to New York to interview 50. I'll come to you right after. And we did an interview at Chelsea Piers, and man, that interview went on to get like millions of views, and it really catapulted my career as like as a I don't even want to say journalist, but just as like a media personality in hip hop. And that led to me interviewing Justin Bieber after that. That led to like me just doing a bunch more stuff. But that was like my first like real, like I was like in the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that what people should be pulling out from this story is because I think, you talked about like having to do what you said on Facebook, for 2 years, like, just putting in names, like manually doing something for 2 years. I think a lot of people are going to give up after a week of doing that, or 2 weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
3 weeks, or a month, or 2 months. But you said you put in the time of 2 years, basically doing the same thing. How did you stick with it for 2 years? Did you start to see something that was resonating with people?
You know what I was also doing too? Because these artists were coming to my school too, I was also like, I was taking like internship things. So I would be like the campus rep for Onitsuka Tiger, right? Like whatever, like some like sneaker company. Or I would be the campus rep for, like, I would just do whatever I could. And I would be like, oh, I got some shoes. Like, let me pass this out at like an event. Oh, I got, like I was just wherever I could get in that felt like part of entertainment, I just did it. And then like when artists would come, and I can't forget to mention this, but I got my boy Graf. So Graf, which is legendary New York Queens rapper, You know, he came to my school too. He came to Howard, and he was like, they just kind of took a liking to me, and I was like showing them around campus and stuff like that. And like his manager was like, hey, like, you know how to like work the internet, you know what I mean? Like, and I was like, yeah, like whatever you guys need, like I'll help you guys, like I'll get your music on this, I'll do this. And I ended up working with Graf too, and I was like his social media coordinator for pretty much like my whole duration of college. And that's another part where like a lot of people don't know, and that's like my big brother, you know, like, and it's funny, his kids are now at Howard too, so it's all like full circle. But yeah, it's like I just made myself available, you know what I mean? And I did whatever, and it wasn't about any money. It was just like whatever I can do and whatever I could offer to help what you guys have going on. Um, and yeah, and so sorry. You asked a question, Dan. My bad.
No, it's cool, because I mean, I think this highlights, you know, just the value of relationships, but how you establish these relationships in terms of you providing value, in terms of you showing up, you know, doing whatever it is that needs to be done. Like, you stepped up to the plate and you were there, you were available. And I think, and you mentioned you must have these relationships to this day, because you just gave me an update on Graf's kids that now go to Howard. These relationships, talk about how important these relationships are and how they play into your business even today.
Oh man. So okay, so first off, the relationship, I mean, it's everything, because it's like you remember, you know, it's like I'm at a point now in my career where I still meet a lot of people and I still try to like foster relationships, and I still, you know, but I've noticed that a lot of stuff and a lot of my success has come from just being solid from like a long time ago. And like I can call people and people pick up the phone, you know, even if we may not talk all the time or whatever, but it's like you try to check in on people and see how people are doing. But people really remember like people who have, you know, done good by them, you know what I mean, and always been like solid people. And I think that like it's rooted in offering help, right? Like so many people, especially young folks today now, I think they get networking misconstrued, and they think that networking is about meeting someone that can do something for you, when if you just literally reframe the thinking to what can I offer someone, what help can I be to someone, how can I be of service, you would be surprised, man, at how far you will get. And again, like sometimes it's like it's not about anything more than just like getting some experience or truly helping somebody out. It's like, you know, I never like when I was just a major fan of Nicki. You know what I mean? Like I just loved her music, and I thought she was going to be like one of the best female rappers of all time. But I thought that when she was putting out mixtapes, you know what I mean? And I just reached out and I was like, look, I just want more people to hear your music, because I'm just a fan of this. You know what I mean? I think this is super dope. And there's been plenty of times in people's careers where I've just like thought that they were incredible, and I just like helped them out, and it has no benefit to me. It doesn't necessarily, like, aside from people being like, oh, you put me on, you know what I mean? Like I like that because I'm a music nerd and snob, you know, so I like the recognition of having good music taste. But other than that, you know, it's not always about like needing to get a percentage or needing like some sort of back end or needing, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's just about like how can you be of service to somebody. And I think like when you move like that, people just remember that, man, and that like you start to see it connect and it play out years later, you know. And I think that's really what's happened with me a lot.
Yeah, nah, and it's not that you're gonna get something back immediately, but if you put that good energy just into the universe, it's going to come back in some way, shape, or form. And it may not be
Yep.
tomorrow, but as you build your reputation as this person that shows up and that does it in a positive way and that adds value, like at some point, you know, whether it's Nikki that does something for you directly or whether Nikki puts you on to somebody else that then eventually works with you, like this industry gets
Yeah.
very small as you start to progress
Very.
in it. So everybody kind of knows everybody. I know that there's a ton of other stuff that happens before we get to R&B only, but for the sake of
Yeah.
time, we need to figure out, like, in the beginning, like, how did R&B only even become an idea? What did you see was missing in the live event space? Like, what were just
Yeah.
the thoughts?
Well, here's the thing. It's all interconnected, right? So my experience interviewing artists led me to going on tours and going to a bunch of shows. And again, I got to shout out Nikki. Like Nikki used to bring me to a bunch of her club dates, all the way to like her opening up for Wayne on these like amphitheater shows. Like she used to just have me tag along. And I was like, oh man, like, okay. Like last week we were in like some little club in Baltimore. Now she's doing like some huge amphitheater. And I understand it's Wayne's tour, but like she's getting her little money from like the club appearances around the Wayne's tour, or she's like gearing up for her own tour. And I was just like, okay, like that was my first like seeing somebody go from like this really small opening act all the way up to doing like their own big shows. And then as I started to get more into the content creation side of things, I saw that, there's other artists like Macklemore, for instance, is another one where like I was working with him and interviewing him like around the time when I graduated school. But I was just like, he would come to New York. I was working at Capitol Records, but I was still doing interviews on the side. And he would come and he'd be like, yo, I got a show here. And it would be like a 500 cap venue. And I would come and I'd be like, man, this is dope, man. You crushed this. And then he would come back 6 months later and be like, yo, I got another show. And now we're in a 1,500 cap room. And I was like, damn, like, okay, it's getting a little bigger. And then he would come back and it's like, yo, 5,000, you know what I mean? Like, and I would just see the trajectory. And I was like, whoa, okay. Like there's something with this live event stuff. And, but again, like he was always really transparent with like how the industry worked and how most of the money was coming from shows and that type of thing. But it really wasn't until like I went on my first arena tour, and that was with Tiny Tempa because he was signed to Capitol EMI in the States, and he was on Parlophone in the UK. And I was working this record called Written in the Stars and Pass Out, both of these records, because I was just like doing digital for the label. And I was like creating a lot of content. The label had hired me because they saw what I was doing on the interview side. And so I went on a press run all around North America. This is when like people used to go on actual press tours. Like we would go and do like like radio stations every morning throughout the whole summer promoting a record. And then we would also like we would be on like all these like summer radio station like concert series in like a lot of like amphitheaters and stuff like that. And this was like performing for free and trying to get like a club appearance or something like that. But like this is back when, and Dame, you know all about this, right? Like this is when you had to like work a record, like literally. And we had records that like, we got a gold certification first, and then we would keep working it, and we would go throughout the summer, and we would go, and then now it's platinum. Oh, now it's 2 times platinum. And then this record, that we had is called Written in the Stars. It ended up being like the MLB used it as like a theme song one year. So like every time a baseball game came on, you heard this song. And we just worked that record, man, like from the ground up. We just went all around the United States playing this damn song. And once that came to an end, I was making all this content around us doing that. And once that came to an end, he had his arena tour to go do in the UK. And in the UK at the time, now you got UK rap is so big. You have so many different artists, and everybody's like killing it out there. But I don't think to this day Tiny gets a lot of the credit he deserves, man, because Tiny Tempa was the first British rapper to ever sell out an arena tour in the UK. And I made a documentary on that process. And I went over there, and it was my first time. Like I had been in arenas before and like at shows and stuff like that with various artists, but that was my first time like working an arena tour and like, you know, having my pass and having a spot on the bus and, you know, my little bunk. And like every day we get up, we go to rehearsals, you know, before the tour even started, we had rehearsals and then special effect. I remember the first day I went to rehearsals, I almost got hit with a freaking pyrotechnic, like because I just was like not used to this level of production. You know, I was walking around with the camera and then something popped up in like the rehearsal space, and it was just like it was like, whoa, this is how big this can actually get. And I say all that to say, like, that was the real inspiration for me to get into the live event space because I got to see in another country, in several other countries for that matter, right? Because we were in like the UK and then we went to Scotland and then, you know, it's just like I just got to see like just how far this like entertainment thing and like your art and your ideas can like take you. You know what I mean? Like if it
Yeah.
connects with people. And once I came back from that tour, like I had quit my job at Capitol because they weren't trying to like let me go on that tour for that long. So basically Tiny and his manager, my boy Doomy, financed it. And you know, I gotta shout out them. Those are still my brothers. Doomy literally just left my house the other day and was just playing with my daughter. Like again, back to relationships. It's like this is like real life, like brotherhood type stuff. You know what I mean? Like and yeah, and so it's like when I came back to the States, I worked on that doc. We put it out. The EMI and Capital kind of folded. Well, what happened is EMI got split into two parts. They got purchased by Universal on the recording side, and I think they got Sony on the publishing side of the business. And so EMI is not even like a label anymore. It used to be one of the big four, and so that went defunct, and then we that messed up the like distribution of the documentary. So we ended up being able to just put it on YouTube. So if anybody wants to watch it, it's called Tiny Tempa Discovering Destiny on YouTube. And so yeah, so I made that, and then I was like, man, I quit Capital. Um, this documentary is done. Now I need to figure something out, and I had all this knowledge about how the live space works, but I'm like, I'm not an artist. Like, I'm a filmmaker and a content creator, you know. But how do I get people to like come to an event? Because I want to get into that space because I know that's how you can make a lot of money. And so I started throwing like little small parties. Um, and those parties, you know, were really, really lit in New York. And then those parties kind of expanded because I had a base of people that I knew in New York, you know, from friends and family. I had DC from the Howard connection from going to school there. And then I was always in LA with artists, right? Because Capital will always send me back and forth to LA. So I was
Yeah.
doing a bunch of stuff in LA and I had a network out here. So I was like, I think I got 3 cities where we can really pop this thing off at. And that's what happened. We started doing these parties. Um, those parties were under one name. It was called Surprise Party. And then me and my business partner kind of like didn't see eye to eye on a few things. And so I decided to part ways and then start my own thing. And then I started Colors. And Colors for 2-3 years was literally just a hip hop party that I was throwing because I loved hip hop music. And I just wanted people to come and have like a judgment free zone and just have a great time in these cities that I had like a lot of friends and family in. And you know, at the end of these parties, I was telling that I would always host the parties myself, but I would book a bunch of DJs and it was getting big. It was getting to the point of like, you know, 3 to 500 people at every single one. I was doing them monthly in 3 different cities, popping around. And again, a lot of people knew me from like making videos and making content. Um, but you know, so they always wanted to pull up to the parties because you know a lot of my artist friends would be there, a lot of my industry friends, all this stuff. Like you know, people would just like they just knew I was a good person, um, and it was like good vibes. And at the end of the nights, I just was like, yo, all R&B. Like I just want to hear R&B at the end of the nights. I want you know the ladies to enjoy themselves. I don't want turning up until we actually have to walk out of here. So I would instruct the DJs on like how I wanted to sort of. I didn't know I was building a run of show at that time, but that's how I
Yeah.
wanted the show to go. And at the end, man, it just what ended up starting to happen was people would like specifically come for the end. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like they would like be coming at like, especially in LA, they would be coming at like 12:30, 1 a.m. And I'm like, yo, it's about to end. Like we're done at 2. But they just wanted to come because they knew that's when I was playing the R&B. And
mm,
it just started. I just kept seeing it in every city. I was like, man, this is like when we play R&B at the end of that, we were playing the R&B that was out, 90s R&B, everything. And I was like, man, it's something different when we play this R&B. And so one day we're at LA and at this venue called Dragonfly on Santa Monica Boulevard. I bring the fader down and I'm like, hey, if I did like an R&B only show, would y'all come? I asked the crowd while I was hosting, and the whole crowd erupted. Like it was crazy. Everybody was like, yeah, that's perfect. Like that's a great idea. Whoa. And so literally I went home and like I booked a venue maybe like the next day. It was a much smaller venue than I would normally put the other thing in. And
mhm,
and it was crazy. And I remember my boys at Dormtainment hosted it with me. I got them involved, and at first I just called it Tonight, like it was like a pop up thing called Tonight. Um, like you wouldn't know because I had booked the venue so quick. I was like, let me just get people in here or whatever. And I said Tonight R&B only. Like that's what it's gonna be. Tonight R&B only. And man, that thing was jam packed. It was crazy, and it was like we only played R&B, and we had taken like a 200 cap like bar and just filled it up like the whole night. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Then I was like, okay, we got to move to a bigger venue. And then so I just called it R&B only, and I said like, oh, this is Colors presents R&B only. Boom, we moved to another venue. That venue was like jam packed, and I was like, this is crazy. And it's like literally by the third one, we were at the same level of my hip hop party, and I
mhm.
was like, okay, I got to rethink this thing. And I was like, maybe I'll turn Colors into a business, and then I'll turn R&B only into one of our brands. And so, I decided to call Colors Worldwide, and I literally just like took it from Live Nation because I was like, Live Nation is called Live Nation Worldwide. Well, I'll just call my business, put
Yeah.
worldwide on the end, and it has no limit. And then, and that's how it began, man. And now R&B only is our flagship brand. Um, and now it's much more than just a live event sort of series or name or brand. We have so many things going on within like just like all of the things that R&B only encompasses. But that's the origin story.
That's dope because I think that's what it takes sometimes. You just got to do stuff and then see how
Yeah,
people react, see what works, what doesn't work. Because if you didn't ever throw parties, you probably wouldn't even have came to this idea and saw how much of an opportunity it was. Because I actually
yeah,
thought that your idea from the jump was like, man, there really is nothing that celebrates R&B in a way that I love R&B. Let me create that. I didn't know it was a totally separate event that had R&B
yeah,
at the end, and then people
yeah,
started resonating with that because I'm a big R&B fan myself. Everybody that knows me knows I'm still stuck in like the late '90s, early 2000s. That's
yeah,
kind of that's where I live. I've never gone out that much, so I don't know what is out there, but I've never come across an experience that just celebrated R&B in the way that you guys have celebrated R&B now for what, a decade plus. Um,
almost. It's getting there, man. Well, I think R&B only is 7 years old. The company's a decade old, but R&B only is about 7 years old now.
so what does it look like now? Like, what are the different things that you guys are doing now for people that may not be familiar?
Yeah, so for those that are not familiar, I think like most people, just to give an overview, most people know R&B only from our live touring show, which is called R&B Only Live,
Mhm.
and that is a DJ driven show where like the way the elevator pitch I like to give people is like we kind of do what EDM DJs do for that genre of music, but for R&B. So there's when you come to an R&B only live show, there's a lot of production, a lot of LED walls, a lot of special effects. We're always in a concert venue. It's very much a show and not a party. Um, And we like to say that because it's kind of in between from like a party and a concert. So that's why we call it a show. It's that sweet spot in the middle where we're gonna, there's a run of show. We're gonna give you a lot of entertainment. There's storytelling. We're basically taking people on a journey of R&B music and R&B culture from past to present. And we've just been able to do that, man, in a very unique way, and have a roster of talent as it relates to like DJs and our hosts, that go through a very long sort of training process, until they're ready to like do shows on their own. And we've just been able to like do it like nobody else has, to be honest, and then keep like reinventing ourselves and like making sure it's not stale, and making sure that we always have a new audience. I think like it's if we were just a party, we would have been died off by now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like people, party brands don't really last that long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like because, and to be honest, it's just because anybody can throw a party. Like anybody can get a DJ, anybody can play some music, anybody can have people turn up. But like what we're doing is very different. It's storytelling, it's production, it's the element of surprise. You know what I mean? We're bringing artists out from all. I mean, it could be a brand like newer artist, or it could be like like I said, bro, I brought John B out at our last show. You know what I mean? John B like hit that stage and went crazy in Dallas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
But they got
it's like
that music though. I mean, that music is so strong and powerful from those times. It lasts.
absolutely
And we're
it
streaming,
lasts.
and we're streaming now. Even young folks are familiar with some of this music because they have access to it right in their pocket in a way that we didn't have when we were younger, right? I would have had
Absolutely.
to have my dad's records or 8 tracks or whatever to play some of the music that he grew up on. Now these young folks can tap in, so they're singing all of the Keisha Cole lyrics, and there's challenges and trends going crazy. So
like old music is new music to somebody. You know what I mean? And I think that like that's really cool about streaming. And it's like we absolutely want to be purveyors of the culture and like showcase all of the new stuff that's out right now. But it's like it's really dope, man, that we're able to like champion the new stuff, but also tip our hat to like where this stuff came from. And we got so much more stuff like just like up our sleeves, and like so I think that like now really the key for us is about like diversification and stepping outside of what we offer in the live space, and just building the brand like and getting more into media. You know what I mean? And like we have a lot of stuff that we do on the media front. We don't like to call it a podcast, but whatever. For the all intents and purposes, I'm gonna call it a podcast right now. But the R&B only show is a podcast that we shoot like right out there. We have another show that we shoot called Singing in the Shower, where we have like a makeshift sort of like shower studio setup, and we invite artists to come and perform on that, and that's been going really well, especially this year. We got a lot of like upcoming artists who've been on there, established artists who have been on there now. We've got like conversation series that we're about to start dropping, where you might have like an old school and a new school artist sit down, and we just literally like put 3 cameras on them and roll and tell them to like just have a conversation. You know what I mean? So I think that like now it's about taking that brand and just like really serving the mission of what that brand was intended to do, which is like amplify just all of R&B. Like really, I want that brand to I'll say be a part of widening and deepening the R&B ecosystem, right? Like hip hop, and again, me being a child of hip hop, me being, hip hop is my first love. Hip hop is everything to me. Like I am hip hop culture. And so much of who I am is like derived from hip hop culture. But what I've seen happen in hip hop culture, I just haven't seen happen, to be honest, in R&B. Whereas like that's the like seeing the lane and seeing the opportunity. Is like there is this entire ecosystem that makes hip hop a multi-billion dollar industry. And it's because there are multiple places for you to go and have interviews at and do a press, run at. There are many places in the live space where you can perform, and there's a ton of festivals, right, like that are like hip hop oriented, and there's radio stations that specifically play hip hop music. There's huge playlists now. There's so many things. There's a fashion element to it. There's a jewelry element to it. There is slang and lingo. You know what I mean? That like if you're a part of hip hop culture. There's just like this massive ecosystem that supports the music and also supports the commerce and the business that then enables people to make the music. And it's just like it's not as plentiful in R&B. It's not like that. You know what I mean? There's only a few outlets. There's only a few places. There's only a few. And that might be something to be said about like the popularity of the music, but I don't know. I think that like I just don't think that people in R&B have been able to capitalize um off of the music in the same way that hip hop has, right? And it's like there's an old school and there's a new school. It's multi-generational. The music is it stands the test of time. So it's like I'm just trying to be like one of those players in there that like helps build the opportunities and makes the opportunities in the space a bit more plentiful.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think especially over the past few years, I think there's definitely been kind of a resurgence, and you guys are contributing to that. But I see much more of an emphasis. I think what you're saying is true. However, I do see a little bit more emphasis placed on R&B, and I just feel like R&B fans are so passionate.
Yep.
There's new platforms popping up. The one thing I want you to touch on before we get out of this interview,
and I got more time too in the event that you want to keep going. We don't have to end like if you got it.
Sure, I appreciate it. But the one thing, because you're a host and have been kind of the primary host at R&B Only, what have you learned as a performer over time? Like how have you made sure that you've gotten better as a performer? What were some of those things that you've had to work on? Like compare and contrast your performance today versus how it was, a few years ago.
Oh man, that's such a great question, bro. And not enough people. I don't get to talk about that a lot, so I really appreciate it. It's definitely that a performance, and I do look at myself when I'm on stage as a performer, and I learn from the best performers. So I think the first thing that I've learned is that you have to go and see the best performers. You know what I mean? Like I watch so many greats, and I go to every single concert I could. I mean, it's a little different now because I'm like in dad mode, but I go see Beyonce. I go see Kendrick. I go see, like all types of. I go see a bunch of comics. You know what I mean? Like I go see a lot of stuff that will sharpen my toolkit, and I borrow and I take from I see this person did this. Oh, I saw that this happened. Like I go to I went to a Chris Brown show and saw something that he did just with the visuals, and I was like, oh, we should use an element of this, you know what I mean? And it's like a moment in the show that people are like, they love, you know what I mean? And so it's like, I think just being a student of amazing performers is just, and then I watch a bunch of stuff. Like I can't tell you how many concert, documentaries or tour shows and stuff like that. Like there's always some, especially when it's a big tour, there's always some person that's going in there with a phone and they're going to record the entire set. And if I can't make it out to a concert, like I'm definitely watching that, you know what I mean, on YouTube. So like, you just got to be a nerd about it, honestly. And you have to really like want to get better. And then that has now evolved into me being, not just at one point I was what you could consider like the main performer or one of the main hosts. And now, I have a team of hosts, right? Because I am also the CEO and founder of this business, and I have to run this business. And, most of my time is spent in these four walls in this office. And I'm, kind of calling the plays from here. So I had to develop a system and a strategy to like teach, you know what I mean? And that was a whole nother like muscle that I had to develop, which is like how to get people to not necessarily just perform like me, but perform like the best version of them and sort of like pull out what I'm seeing in them as a performer. And that's like not just hosts, but DJs as well. Um, and and really become like a develop, not just like a someone who can seek out talent, but someone who can develop talent. And I think that I'm proud of like being able to develop talent that like fits on a stage, but also I'm developing talent like, like in here, and like trying to develop like executive talent, and then
Yeah.
trying to develop like talent who, like some of the folks who are here are like more in front of the camera. They're never on a stage, but they're, now that we have this media side of our business, they're on camera. So I got to develop talent on that side. So I think, but there's a through line, and I think that that's like a big part of my career is seeing the connections and seeing the through lines and being able to say, talent development for a performer is a little different, but there's a lot of similarities on talent development from an employee. Um, and, I am just trying to learn and be the best, that I can be as it relates to that now, like trying to
So
develop, because at the end of the day, man, like that is the real like sweet sauce, and that's the, or special sauce rather, like that's the real key, is like, it's just having a great team. I know it sounds like so cliche, like everybody is, and oftentimes like, it may sound as like a false, like a humble brag or something, like, oh, it's just my team, like, you
yeah,
know what I mean, like, but it's like, yo, you know, it's real. You cannot do this all by yourself. And if
yeah,
you, it's great to have a ton of ambition, and it's great to, um, you know, like have a lot of responsibility, and like make sure that the onus is on you when you want something done right. But at the end of the day, it's like you need support to accomplish anything great. It's only going to be done with other people involved, and so
yeah.
I really pride myself on that, and having like an amazing team.
That's dope, man. And the people that I have met, they've been super solid. The people I've interacted with, I feel like you got a great team.
Thank you,
Lastly,
man.
there are a lot of artists watching this. Where are the different parts where they might be able to get involved? Like, do you accept submissions for the singing in the shower? Do you have playlists? Like, what are the
Oh yeah,
different parts where like an up and coming artist may be able to contribute to what you're doing at Colors or R&B only?
yeah, for sure. So man, all the artists watching, we have a lot of things. So um, we have singing in the shower, and we're I would say though, with that, that's this is the reality that a lot of people won't talk about, right? Like, because this is just facts. Like, there's not a lot of places for like independent artists who have like just raw talent to shine. You know what I mean? And for us, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it has to make sense. We don't want to put artist who has one song, no following, and they might be amazing, but we don't want to put them on that platform, because it's like, well, what is it really going to do? We're trying to grow the platform as much as they're trying to be seen by our platform. So it kind of has to be like mutually beneficial. I
Mm-hmm.
think for us, like, for various stages, what we're trying to do is develop, like, here's what we got for like completely baby artists who doesn't really have a following and just might sound good to like, just needs a bit more eyeballs and ears on their music. And I feel like that is our we have playlists for that. You know what I mean? Like, and that's on Spotify. You can just type in R&B only with the ampersand, R&B only, 2 words. And we just, you can literally just like, the way that we do submissions for that is on Patreon. So if you go to Patreon/R&B only, you can like submit music for like playlist consideration. So I would say there's that. Then on the next level is like, uh, singing in the shower and that type of thing. I would say that's more so like, we look at the Patreon submissions for sure, but it's like, if you have incredible vocals and like you're going off on your own Instagram and stuff like that, just DM it to us. Send us a link, not so that we have to go and like I would have to make my team comb through all your music and find out what's the, you know what I mean? It's like, that's a performance series. So if you are performing really well and you have a video that showcases that, send that. You know what I mean? One video, one link. You know what I mean? And like, our team will look at it and consider it. So I would say like that's another way. And then what we're also probably gonna do, and this is like, we try to take like marketing, sort of like, we take a lot of like marketing inspiration and lessons from like sports. And what we might start doing, especially at big shows, because now we have like arena shows and amphitheater shows, and there's a lot of like bigger stuff where like thousands of people are at our shows. I think we've been toying around with this, me and Sonia, thinking about this. Is like, we might start having up and coming artists in that market like sing the national anthem before one of our shows, and then film that, use that as content, like be able to push that out to our audience, and just give like up and comers like a shot. But again, like, I think there will be some way, or how we figure out how to like collect submissions for that.
Yeah.
But you got to just be able to go off. You know what I mean? Like, if we're gonna have you sing the national anthem before a show with like 5 to 10,000 people, like, you can't be like weak. You know what I mean? So yeah.
A lot of artists, they don't know, like, it's hard for them to kind of self-select themselves into the right opportunity. They think they're ready to go straight to the top. They're ready for the 5,000, 10,000 people. Ain't even performed they ain't even performed at church yet, but they're ready for
Exactly.
the 5,000, the 10,000.
Yep.
So I think you just have to be real. I know artists don't like me telling them to be realistic, but just have a team to kind of better understand, like, there's opportunities at different levels that he just described. Like, submit for the appropriate one, right? To give yourself the best shot, and then continue to level up. But Jabari, man, is there anything that I know there's probably a ton of other stuff. We're probably gonna have to have you back so we can dive more.
Yeah, man. And well, I'm gonna be doing something. I had put on LinkedIn. I was like, man, I'm gonna do office hours. Like, I want to do something like this where I'm just like having my friends on and talking. And it's like literally the same exact thing that you're doing. And I didn't realize that your shit was called office hours. And I was like, okay, I gotta maybe name it something different. But like,
it is. I don't think it's that unique of a name. If you've been to college, like, what office hours.
Yeah, you know what office hours is. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, but I want to have you on mine, man, because I like, you see how yours is like this is, first off, this is incredible. And like, just, I love that you're doing this, because you're the perfect person for this, for artists. What I want to do is something where I'm having these kind of discussions. I'm even, just talking about like maybe answering questions and stuff like that. But I want to do it more so geared toward people who are trying to get in the entertainment industry, or just young in their career in the entertainment industry. So not necessarily artist specific, but more so like entertainment industry specific. And because I just think, man, I think that this is so needed. Like, people really have like a skewed vision of like what is going on in this space. And at the end of the day, it's not really like rocket science. It's not like that. It's not even that like different from like a normal professional career. But like, there's some huge differences, and then there's like a lot of similarities. But it's like, I think people, just because it's music, or it's entertainment, it's movies, it's whatever, it's like they just approach it with these sort of like with this lens that, like, you're walking down the street and somebody's going to discover you one day, or you're like, or there's some like grand fairy tale story. It's just like, at the end of the day, a lot of this shit is just hard work, perseverance, figuring out what people want and what the market needs, and just like it's difficult, but it's simple at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Nah,
yeah, I
I
think there
think
just needs to be more people like giving game and giving information.
for sure, especially people like yourself that actually have been through it and are very successful at different levels. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to carve out success. I mean, there's definitely some similar things that I'm sure that we both have gone through, or just certain
Yeah.
qualities, just being consistent. There's a lot of that. So, and I think sometimes young people just need to hear it from different voices,
Yeah.
time and time again. So keep me posted on what you guys
Yeah,
start.
you're gonna be one of the first episodes if you'll be on, man. So
For sure,
hold
let's
on,
do
can
it.
I ask you a question before we go?
Yes, sir.
All right, my question for you is, from starting out, I believe was it private equity that you were in?
Nah, I was an internal auditor for Wells Fargo. Then
That's what it is. Okay,
I worked for Goldman Sachs over in London, went and got my
okay,
MBA. Then I
but you were
worked
in
for
finance.
yeah, kind of, yeah,
Okay,
operations. I was, yeah,
operations. Okay,
yeah.
so like to then going to management, to then like, because that's how we met when Funk Volume was going crazy,
Mhm.
and then to getting into still management, but management for a comedic a comedian, to then being in distribution. It's like when you look back, right, it's sort of easy to tell the story of like how you got here, right?
Yeah.
But when you're figuring out which move to make, and like, is this the right thing to end this and go here and do this and reinvent yourself, right? Like,
Hmm.
can you talk about the decision making process of changing paths and what
Well,
ultimately led you to like do those things?
yeah, well, one of those decisions was not mine. I did not want, I did not want Funk Volume to go away.
True,
So it
true,
was just kind
true.
of born, from that. Once Funk Volume ended, it was kind of like, the Music Entrepreneur Club was started because it was a lesson learned from that experience. It was kind of born out of the ashes of Funk Volume, just knowing how important it is for artists to learn the business, because when artists don't understand the business, it's very hard for them to have conversations with quote unquote business people. And there's a higher likelihood of those conversations spiraling out of control because you're not starting from a similar space or a similar understanding, right? So
Mhm.
I just think being an entrepreneur in general, you kind of just need to be willing to take chances. You got to be open to saying yes when people present you with opportunities and just trying stuff. I think in my career, I've done so many different things. And a lot of those things, what I realized is I just didn't want to do that thing. But that was a good
Yeah.
experience for me to know I tried it, did it, understand what it is. That's not for me. That was internal auditing. That was operations at Goldman Sachs. That was, Deloitte Consulting. The management consulting experience was a great experience, but that was also something like, okay, that's not something I want to go back into. And then when I got laid off from that job, it just so happened to coincide with my brother hitting me up and saying, hey, he wants to drop out of school and do music. He has a high school friend named Hobson. They want to start some independent label. I'm like, what the hell is that? But let me help
Yeah.
out. So it was just,
Yep.
it's just being open to saying yes, and just approaching everything with a positive mindset and trying to give some structure to a very unstructured space. I think that's what I've always been good at, because I've always been a very structured individual. And I went to school, many years of school, and I've worked in the corporate world where you have so much structure. And I think that's what I
Mhm.
give to a lot of these creatives when I work with them, is I try to give them some structure so that they can pursue their dreams in a way that's not so just all over the place, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I give to Big Ja. That's what I gave to Funk Volume. I am not a person that wants to be like a lifelong manager. I just keep
Mhm.
running. Like Big Ja is just somebody that I've known since '99. We went to college together. So,
Yeah.
I
And
care
he's
about.
just an amazing guy to work with too. Like
Oh man,
he seems so open to
yeah.
inviting that structure in. Like he wants to make it himself. You know what I mean? Like, and a lot of creatives are not like that.
Yeah, nah. I mean, our relationship is so much different. Like he's so appreciative of what I bring to the table. I'm appreciative of his talents. I didn't even realize that I cared about somebody saying thank you because I never heard it before until I started working with him. You know what I mean? I didn't realize that would impact me in such a positive way. I got, I don't care. I keep things moving. But yeah, we got a totally different relationship. And then I work with a young lady named Persephone. She's in a lot of jazz stuff. She's a host, model, actress. So I'm open to working with people, but my box, the boxes that you must check off is so long that I don't think I'll ever meet another music artist that checks those boxes. So
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if that answers your. We'll have to continue this conversation on your platform.
That definitely, yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, I got so many more questions for you, Dan, for sure.
Man,
that I feel like people need to hear. So
for sure, man. Well, I appreciate you joining us. This has been another great conversation for Two Lost Office Hours. Lastly, let's let people know where to find you.
Yeah, for sure. So you can, just the usual suspects, man. So I would say Instagram is like that's just at Jabari. That's more so where I give a lot of like highlights and what's happening with the business, like once it's happened or announcements, stuff like that. I mean, I'm not really personal on a lot of these things. It's more so like business, but then LinkedIn is where I've found a lot more. I don't know. LinkedIn is cool, man. I really like LinkedIn for like a
It's a
little bit
lot
of
less.
off the cuff.
It's a lot less trolls, at least for now.
Yeah, at least for now,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, but it's a little bit of like I get to kind of showcase what I'm doing and my thoughts from an entrepreneurial standpoint, not just from like you know, um, hey, this is what's happening and this is like me on a stage or this is that type. It's like LinkedIn is where I get to just to talk business a little bit more, and I really enjoy that. So that's pretty much it. And then just follow the brands, R&B only. Across all socials. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. YouTube is where we're putting a lot of energy. We just put out a video today that sort of talks about. It's from a series that we have called Untold Tales of R&B. We utilize AI for the series a bit, like for like the voiceover and stuff like that. But it's a lot of like research that we do to tell stories that haven't been told before in R&B music. So we have a video up right now about Chris Brown's forgotten first single, which is called "Whose Girl Is That?" And so we put out like a little 9-minute video about that. That's pretty cool, and I think people will really like it if they're interested in R&B. So
dope.
Yep.
So tap in with Jabari. Make sure you go to a show too if it comes to or when it comes to
Yes.
if you're an R&B
about to announce
fan,
tour dates June next month.
there it is. All right, y'all. This has been another episode of Two Lost Office Hours. Catch us every week at 12 p.m. Pacific. Next week, I got my guy Sam joining us. We're going to be talking about brand deals, how to value your platform to get properly paid from brands, all that stuff. So tune in next week, 12 p.m. See you guys there. Peace.